Hello and welcome back to Conan Exiles, and this is my breakdown of the most recent of the developer updates for Conan Age of War. If you're not familiar with the whole concept of the ages, then all future development of Conan Exiles is taking place within different ages, and each age comprises 3 chapters. So the first age was the Age of Sorcery, which introduced magic to the exiled lands, and that comprised 3 chapters, and now we're halfway through Age of War, which is essentially improving the Purge system. And in the first chapter, which was a little bit lackluster, let's face it, not an awful lot happened in the first chapter, but the first chapter introduced the idea of treasure. We've now got these treasure rooms in our bases and we can fill them with gold and silver coins. And we can also go out in the world and pick up treasure and stick that in there as well, because now we're going to see the improved Purge system. Up to now, purges have depended on you filling up your Purge meter. You'll spend a certain number of hours in the game, your Purge meter will gradually fill up, and then the Purge will trigger automatically at some point, and you'll get hordes of enemies coming and attacking your base. And to be honest with you, the Purge system has always been a bit naff. I've had a few good Purges, but quite often you just might get a few manky skeletons attacking your base, and not very much happens, frankly. But in the new Purge system, you can trigger it when you want, and the enemies, who are mostly Stygians, will attack your base and try and steal your treasure. And from what I've seen of it in this update, it looks quite fun actually. And the update also included some information on other things, like there's a new building set called Stygian Pyramid, and there's the usual new rewards in the battle pass, new armour sets and whatnot. And they were also very pleased with their new bookcases. You've got 4 different types of bookcases that you can join together to create quite impressive libraries. But I can't remember if that's in the battle pass or something that you have to buy in the bazaar. I'm not sure if they mentioned which way it was going to go, to be honest with you. So anyway, getting back to the purges, and it turns out that you have to have a certain amount of treasure in your treasure chest, in your coffer, to trigger a purge. In the example they were using in the update, they had gold coins, and they started out with 6,000 gold coins, and that would trigger a level 3 purge. Then they reduced it down to 4,000 gold coins, and that was a level 2. So presumably you can only have a purge if you've got at least 2,000 gold coins, or the equivalent in your chest. So it goes 2,000 gets you the level 1, 4,000 gets you the level 2, 6,000 gets you the level 3, and you can go all the way up to level 10. And the difficulty of the purge depends on 2 things. It's the level you've selected, and also the number of thralls you have defending your base. So if you've got a lot of thralls, then more enemies will attack. But that's really the only difference between the different purge levels. It's the number of waves of attackers that assault your base. And unlike the earlier purges that attacked your whole base, whatever it was and wherever it was, in these purges you've got a bunch of Stygians and a few others mixed in there, and they're targeted at the treasure in your treasure chest. And to get to your treasure chest they need a clear path. You need to have your treasure chest within some sort of built structure, and that built structure has to have a door. If it doesn't have a door, the purge can't actually find its way to you, and you'll get a message up on the screen saying that the purge has had to be cancelled. So to kick off a purge, you make sure you've got enough treasure to start one off, and then you proclaim your wealth, and that tells the system that you want a purge to attack it. Then the purge will start and you'll get a number of status messages, and the first status is scouting, and in that the game just makes sure that you can be purged. So you've got a clear path between the outside and your treasure, and that you've not built your base in somewhere that's essentially, unattackable. And as I said, if the game can't kick off a purge, it'll actually tell you that it can't, and then give you a reason why. However, assuming that a purge does take place, you'll see a Stygian base spawn quite near your base, and then waves of attackers will start coming out of this base, making their way to your doorway, and then attempting to break it down. Now most of these attacking waves will be Stygians, but in there you'll also get a few prisoners mixed in from other races, but they're going to be quite uncommon apparently. It's mostly going to be Stygians, and there's going to be a special class of attacker called a Demolisher, and the Demolishers carry these sort of handheld battering rams, and these are the ones that try and break down your doors. They break down the doors, all the other attackers sort of rush in, kill your thralls, or try to, and then once they've fought their way to your treasure room, the Demolishers just go a bit crazy, knocking things down, while their compadres steal your treasure and walk off with it. So obviously your job is to just try and stop them. Now the developers did admit that at this stage things can go wrong. So for example, if demolishers accidentally demolish the doorway rather than just the door, then the game loses the path to the treasure and it has to cancel the purge. And also in the example they showed us in the update, the demolishers accidentally broke down the foundation block the treasure coffer was standing on, and the coffer disappeared, and again the purge had to be cancelled. So there's a few things that can go wrong. Whether that can be fixed, I'm not sure. The demolishers are quite powerful, and apparently if you're building in tier 1 building material, then your foundation blocks and walls whatever will only take 1 or 2 hits before crumbling away to nothing. So the demolishers are quite tough. Currently purges are on a timer. I think they last for almost exactly half an hour, but in the new system there isn't going to be a timer. The purge ends when it ends, and the number of waves of attackers will depend on the level of the purge and the number of thralls that you have defending. But it's expected that most purges won't last more than 20 minutes or so. Now once you've defeated the purge, and hopefully you will do, then that's your opportunity to go back and attack the Stygian base. And as you approach the base, this 2-skull boss comes out, called the Hand of War. You kill them, you get some nice loot off their body hopefully, and then you can go around and loot the rest of the camp. Something else that the Hand of War drops is a key, and you need that key to get into loot boxes and also to release prisoners from the cages. And one of these prisoners is going to be a new character called Iskar the Sellsword, and he's a mercenary, and as well as being a mercenary he's also a merchant who can sell you a great deal of stuff that will help you sort of build up your defences. And he also sells mercenary banners, so if you buy a mercenary banner off this guy you can take it back to your base, and then if you plant the banner, 5 or 6 mercenaries just sort of spawn out of nowhere and they'll be available to fight for you. But I think the idea is that you only put down the banner once a purge is attacking, because the mercenaries are on a timer. They'll disappear after a certain amount of time, or if they get killed essentially. So I suppose the idea is that you'll have a stash of these mercenary banners that you'll place down when you need them. Yeah, so Iskar the Sellsword sounds quite an interesting character. At the moment you can only get him as a released prisoner from one of the Stygian bases, but apparently in chapter 3 there's going to be a system where you can summon him whenever you need him. They've also boosted the defences available to your camp, so they've got these fire and oil cauldrons that you can pour down on attacking Stygians. And they've also introduced a new guard system where you can set a thrall as a guard, and they will not move from that position. They will move a little way, but it's not like the current system where if you've got a thrall guarding a doorway, they will often run quite a distance to attack an enemy. Under the new guard system, they might run a few feet to get to an attacker, but most of the time they'll stay put. Yeah, the loot system's also going to get overhauled, because currently the loot is quite dull in many cases. You can go and open an interesting looking chest and only find it full of fibre or stones or something like that. And the loot currently is also not situational, so you could go into a Stygian camp for example, open a chest and find a stone club in there, which is not something you would expect to find. So going forward, loot is going to be situational. If you go into a Stygian camp you will find Stygian gear. If you kill Stygians, you're likely to be able to pick up some of their weapons or armour. And we're not going to have any more of the boring stuff, so no fibre and stones and wood. They're also going to introduce the concept of sort of loose weaponry on the main Exiles map, because at the moment on the Isle of Sipta you can go into a camp and find sort of weapons lying around that you can just pick up, and that wasn't available in Exiles, but that is now going to be a new feature. You can have this sort of interactive loot that you can pick up straight from the ground. There's also going to be different classes of loot chest. I'm not sure if they're going to introduce them in this chapter or in chapter 3, but in the future you will have some loot chests that are sort of shinier than others, and these will have a better class of goodies inside. There's a lot going on with dungeons as well. They didn't go into too many details, but the loot in dungeons is going to be much better. There's going to be new bosses apparently, and also new traps. So essentially they're refreshing all the existing dungeons just to make them a bit more replayable. They also spoke about these new attack mechanics, but at the moment if you attack someone you're sort of locked into an animation, which quite often results in misses. You'll go for someone, they'll move off to the side, and you're left swinging at thin air essentially. It happens to me quite a lot unfortunately. But they have now changed it so you can redirect your attack. just at the last minute, and although it's a very small change mechanically, apparently it makes a huge difference to the gameplay, so I should be quite interested in seeing that. A few other things they mentioned is that arrow damage will now diminish quite significantly with distance, and there's going to be more damage given to a lot of throwing weapons like javelins. There are going to be no more god bubbles, which I never use, but a lot of people do apparently, and things like trebuchets will be easier to build. We also had a brief introduction to the Battle Pass. There's going to be a lot of new armour sets based on relic hunters. And there's quite an interesting looking building set called War-Torn Ruins, which is based on the current Numidian set. And it's going to be what it sounds like, buildings that look like they've just been destroyed by purges, presumably. That looked quite interesting. Again, I'm not sure if that's in the Battle Pass or something you can buy in the bazaar. I mentioned earlier that there's going to be a pyramid building set, which does look quite spectacular. You can build these huge pyramids, and they've got these secret passages inside them, so you can be quite mysterious and build these very interesting labyrinths inside your pyramids. And to complement that, there's going to be a mummy armour set, which looks quite fun, and I think that is in the Battle Pass. But you can now dress up as like a fighting mummy, if you will, and guard all your new treasure, because they've revamped the treasure slightly. At the moment you've just got piles of silver and gold coins, but they're going to mix that in a little bit, have gems and such like. There's going to be a sarcophagus that you can have in your treasure room, and also various other new treasure items. I mean, something they mentioned specifically was a shimmering ruby. A few more things they mentioned is this Aesir armour set called King of the Hill, and a new polar bear pet, which looks jolly fun. And they also showcased a few more relic hunter items. You've got this new wearable backpack that functions in the same way as a bearer's backpack, but looks more interesting. And you've also got things like this sort of chakram weapon, which is like a punching tool, which looked jolly vicious, I must say. But that was about it. Some interesting stuff there. It looks like Age of War is finally taking off. As I said, Chapter 1 was a bit of a bore, frankly. Once you'd found a bit of the fancy treasure, there wasn't much more to say about it. But the new Purge system could be really interesting. I mean, it all looks really good on PC, which is what they were showcasing on the developers update. Whether it looks as nice on a PS5, I don't know. I can only cross my fingers and hope so. Anyway, that was about it. I hope you found that useful and interesting, and I hope to see you again for the next video. And until I do, I shall say goodbye.